Good afternoon, everyone. This is Alyssa Mark with the Virginia Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition. I'm happy that you're able to join us today for our webinar. We've got Dr. Kim Morgan and Ben Garber from the Agricultural and Applied Economics Department here at Virginia Tech, and they're going to talk with you today about the Market Ready program. But before we go ahead and get started, there's a couple of things I want to let you all know. First is that this webinar is being recorded, and it will be posted to the Virginia Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition website early next week. You'll be able to access the slides as well as this recording through our website. Second, you are currently muted through whichever audio device you've connected with. We would like to ask that you continue to stay muted through the webinar to be considerate to the speakers so there isn't a lot of feedback and a lot of people talking at once. If you have a question, we ask that you use the chat box, which is located in the top right-hand side of the screen. You can send that either to myself, Alyssa Mark, or you can send it to everyone. If you have a question that's like, can you please repeat what you just said, we'll make sure that we take that into account. But if you have a general question, we'll save that to the end where we'll have a question and answer session. So with that, I'm going to hand the microphone over to Kim Morgan, who will begin our session today.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Very glad to have you all joining us on this lovely Thursday. And what we'd like to do today really is just sort of give you an introduction to our Market Ready Farm to Restaurant workshop program. We've been able to do 2 of them last year in Harrisonburg and Winchester, and they were very successful, I think well received, and I feel like they really helped a lot of folks in the area that were interested in selling their farm products or farm food products direct to restaurants. So we're trying to give you a little bit of an idea of the team and a little bit of a teaser, if you will, about the stuff that's in the content that's in the program, and then hopefully let you know about, we have 2 upcoming trainings. One will be in Wytheville area, November 30th. And then we have another one up in the Arlington area, December 12th. We'll have information at the end of this where you can go ahead and sign up and register to attend those. Again, they are a full-day program, so we're hopefully in the next 40 minutes or so going to give you a little bit of a taste of what we've done. So hang on with us. We'll go fast. It seems like a lot of information, but we wanted to at least give everyone some idea of this really neat program we've been able to bring here to Virginia. So a little bit about our team. These are the folks that have all contributed content to what you're going to see, what you would see on our websites that we have available through the Virginia Cooperative Extension portal. So myself as ag economist, Joelle Eifert is our food science expert at the Food Innovations Lab here on campus. She's done quite a bit of work on packaging. Ramon Arancibia has helped us with the season extension, production, supply side of our work. Matt Ludwig helps us put together our multimedia work. He also helps with farm website development and any other IT help that we need help with. And then our Coal Center team, I'd like to acknowledge my student colleagues that helped us last fall build content for the blog post that you'll see on our website, as well as the video interviews that they did on farm with farmers and restaurants that are currently engaged in farm-to-restaurant relationships. Morgan Meeder, Emily Van Dyke, and then Ben Garber, who's with me today, and will be co-presenting quite a bit of this material as well. So again, acknowledge all those folks that had a lot to do with content. This team will be with us on the road at the November 30 and December 12 meetings. So a little bit about what motivated us to bring this Market Ready program. It is a trademarked program. It was originated by Dr. Tim Woods at the University of Kentucky. I've adapted it for Mississippi. It's been adapted in other states as well. And it's built off of what did restaurant managers, owners, chefs tell us they need to have in order to buy direct from growers in their state or nearby their location. So, and I always like to also kind of explain why is this an interesting relationship for you to go ahead and consider marketing your products directly. So I sort of start that off with the Economic Research Service puts out the food dollar. So every dollar an average consumer spends on food, this gives you a general idea of where the money in that dollar goes. Typically, the farm gate value and what the farmer would get from that food dollar is 9.7 cents. That number's dropped from 15 cents just a few years ago. We know our producers are efficient in Virginia and across the U.S., and that's evidenced by what their percentage of that overall dollar is, every food dollar that's spent. However, all of the remaining 80 cents or so of that dollar is spent on what we consider marketing activities. So if you're interested in direct marketing, somebody still has to manage the farm production. They have to manage the marketing and promotion expenses. They have to manage the transportation, the packaging, the energy costs, any kind of processing. So that still has to be, those exercises still have to be taken on by somebody. And if you're the one that wants to sell them direct, then that somebody is going to be you. So yes, there is another 82 cents out there, but there are expenses associated with that additional revenue, if you will. So I always like to sort of start off with, that's one of the reasons folks are interested, but also caution that these marketing activities do have real dollar and time cost. So why is it an interesting idea besides potentially regaining some of that 82 cents if you're able to find an efficient way to manage the marketing costs? Well, this is a recent article that I like to bring out and share with folks. It just came out last year talking about, they looked at farms that are marketing through traditional channels where they're selling direct wholesaler to processors versus going into this more direct sales channel market. And they did find that folks that are selling direct had longer, what they call business survival and growth. This is really important to me as an economist because I think this is a great opportunity for you to improve annual profitability, but my bigger concern is if I'm encouraging you to consider this direct marketing channel, are there long-term sustainable profits there to be made for you? Because it is, again, a considerable upfront cost to learn about the marketing and to engage in the marketing. So this article did show proof that farms that were involved in direct marketing did have some preferred business survival, especially in the smaller and medium-sized firms, which again is most of us probably on the call. So another key point I like to bring out, and they market, National Restaurant Association puts out a what's hot every year in terms of what their restaurants are telling you. Again, restaurants are right in front of their customers every single day, so they're a great source of market data, if you will. And these are some of the top 20 things that I chose to share with y'all, thinking of the things that we in Virginia are really good at producing. Locally sourced meats and seafoods are always a top commodity. What they call hyper-local sourcing, which is where restaurants even have gardens in their own backyard, backyards or parking lots. So it's your hyper-local sourcing. Different cuts of meat, artisan ice creams. Another thing, again, number 13, the farm estate branded items. That's been really popular. So again, if you're going to involve yourself in marketing activities, having a brand, a very identifiable brand, is really important. And then we're seeing a lot of the cultural, ethnic inspired items become really popular in here, and this is in the breakfast area. And then something as simple as a pickle, for example, is becoming something that the restaurants really looked for in 2016. So this is, again, last year's top 20, but I wanted to share with you, again, what are some of the things they're interested in that you could possibly produce or offer. Another motivation, our governor, as most of you know if you follow the VDAX press release sites, very interested, very inspired by, very connected with how important agribusiness is to the state of Virginia in terms of an economic driver. So there's always, I think every week or 2 weeks, every month, he's putting out an article or he's visiting about cideries or wineries. I think I last saw him quoted that he's going to hit every cidery and winery in the state of Virginia. And I'm like, that's a good governor to promote those for us. But he's a big believer in it. He encouraged us to do a study on the impact of agritourism, for example, on the state of Virginia. So he's very excited about it. It's a big push for us here, he and his First Lady both, to get Virginia-grown food items on the table. So it's also important in our climate. And again, that's going to help me as an economist sort of give you some ideas about how this can be a sustainable investment over the long run. And then finally, I like to share this quote by Wendell Berry. Some of you may be familiar with his work. I think he's largely does a lot of poetry work. Got some reverb. Is that okay? So this one's interesting to me because he says in his comment, and again, he's followed by a lot of consumers. He's in the Natural Life magazine, this particular quote, that people are fed by the food industry, which pays no attention to health. And they're treated by the health industry, which pays no attention to food. And I struggle with this quote a little bit in two ways. One, when I see my audience, when we work with y'all selling direct to restaurants, I don't see a food industry. I see people. I see people that are very concerned with the food they're producing, with the quality, with the supply, with the nutrient value, and many other reasons why folks are interested in selling their products directly to restaurants or directly to consumers. They're wanting to make that connection. So I don't see a food industry. I see people. And then the connection between food and health, I think a lot of us are more aware of that than either the health or the food industry know about. So I like to keep this in your mind when you're thinking about direct marketing, that this is sort of what consumers are thinking. This is how they're feeling, and their ability to be able to choose where their food is coming from gives them a sense of control, a sense of, added knowledge about where the food comes from and how it's grown. I mean, yes, most of us don't know how food is grown or where it comes from, but that doesn't mean most consumers aren't interested. So that component of education is a lot of what you're going to be involved with if you choose to sell direct to consumers, even if it's through a restaurant where there's still a final end user between you and the restaurant owner. So kind of keep this in mind, and this is sort of the overarching goal. You're going to be involved in educating your buyers, whether they're the restaurants or the restaurant's customers. And it's largely you're facing this kind of a consumer view. So, when you think about your marketing message as we go through some of these specific tasks of marketing, kind of keep that in mind. What's your marketing message? What are you trying to say with your food and providing your food direct to consumers? So sort of a thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Alrighty, thank you, Dr. Morgan, for that great introduction. I'm Ben. I hope everybody's doing great. So that's a good introduction to why direct marketing. Next, we're going to talk about, what is direct marketing? Essentially, what we're doing is we're reducing the distance between the farm's field and the end user. But it's a little bit more complex than, say, pulling a beet out of a field, shaking it a couple times, and then driving it to a restaurant. So first off, we like to make the point that direct marketing is market-driven. Nobody produces things in a vacuum, and we're not trying to convince you to grow this specialty niche product that is so specialty that no one really needs it. Basically, the way direct marketing works is first you identify a need. So in this case, we're talking a lot about the need for stuff direct from the farmers that's being expressed in the restaurant industry right now. Then you grow products that satisfy that need, direct from the farm products, at a price that customers are willing to pay and returns a profit to the business. So it meets the need of restaurants to offer this product to their consumers and keep their consumers happy, and it returns the need of your farm business to make a profit and hopefully be financially stable over the long run. So as far as direct marketing, a couple of the issues we have to be thinking about. There are different sourcing needs. Somebody who is sourcing direct from the farmer is going to be looking at things a little differently than if they were buying directly from a distributor. And we'll get into that later, but basically, they don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff when produce or meat or whatever is showing up on a truck from Cisco once or twice a week. And if you're going to get into the direct marketing business, that means that stuff becomes more your bailiwick. You're thinking about some of those issues. There are different issues facing meat, produce, processed food products. Each specific product has some specific issues dealing with it that as a farmer you need to know, so you're offering safe, legally compliant, high-quality products to your consumers and keeping them happy. But in general, the basic business-to-business framework holds. So if maybe beforehand, you were selling your stuff, you were selling livestock at the stockyard or selling produce at a produce auction or something like that, that was a business-to-business transaction. You're still doing business-to-business. You're just getting more involved. You're reclaiming some of those steps and hopefully making a higher profit for the extra work you're putting in. So restaurants right now are trying to feature local items to differentiate their menu offerings and attract customers seeking food experience. We focus on direct marketing, not necessarily local, because the word local is, it has a lot of different definitions. But the most common one I've heard thrown around is within 400 miles. So for most of Virginia, you're going to be doing that. And this is the need that you're meeting. You're trying to meet that need. And chefs want to tell a food story, so they may need your help in crafting this story. Like, what they're trying to do by buying directly from the farmer is give themselves a little bit more room to market their product, and they want your help in that. They're trying to talk about you in a way that draws in their consumer, makes their consumer feel like they're getting a higher value product, than something that may not have a story associated with it. So they may need your help to make that marketing push. That's part of adding value when selling direct. And then restaurants will utilize direct communication with their patrons. That might be email, that might be a website, that might be Twitter, it might be Facebook, it might be something else. So you need to be mindful of that as well. These are a couple quotes from restaurateurs. The top one is, just for an example, I'd rather tell the story, but I don't always have a captive audience in my dining room. I might have somebody who's in a hurry and they just want a sandwich. Restaurants need your help on communicating with their patrons, on making it easy to tell that story, and on being able to reach people and, regain the business based on that. So this is a quick checklist. This is a shorter version of a longer checklist that if you come to our meetings in the fall and early winter, you'll get a much longer, more comprehensive version of this. So please register if you're interested. But this is just a couple things to consider when you're looking at starting to market directly to a restaurant. So one is, I know what kind of customer typically eats the restaurant I'd like to sell to. That's going to influence what you're selling. Like I said, nobody sells in a vacuum. You need to be meeting a need. I know when, where, and how often it might be possible for the restaurant to mention my product by name in their communication. That's part of the marketing component. That's part of the value that you're adding, but you need to have a good idea of what's feasible for them. And then I have easily accessible, simple, clear marketing materials that provide information that a restaurant could use to tell the story of my product. That's, not to beat a dead horse, but that's what they want help with. They want help on marketing you and your product to a customer as part of the experience at a restaurant. So that's kind of the introduction to direct marketing. Here are some of the subsections we're going to be covering. We're going to be covering packaging and labeling of products, how to price a product, the different components of supplying a product, invoicing to restaurants. We're going to be covering product liability insurance, product delivery, product storage, quality assurance, and satisfaction guarantee.
Okay, thanks, Ben, and giving us a good kickoff there. So again, you probably just saw that nice long bullet list, and you're probably wondering how we're going to pull that off in about 25 minutes. But again, it's meant to be a teaser to kind of get you interested in what we all will be offering during that day-long workshop. So jumping into packaging and labeling, again, it's a very condensed version here. You have a couple things that all of this information came from interviews with actual chefs and restaurant owners and managers that are actively engaged in successful relationships buying food directly from growers. So that's where this information came from. So that's what we're sharing it from the horse's mouth, literally. Choice of package hinges on the purpose. Do you need a protective barrier from what exactly? Air, water, breakage of the product? Does it need to have a visual window or graphics on it? Does it need your logo on it? Does it need to have information specific to certification, branding, grading? Is there regulation issues that you have to be aware of as you sell to the restaurant, traceability or safety? Purposes, again, may have inverse relationships. So you may have regulatory issues you need to address on your packaging, which makes the package maybe not as attractive as the restaurant buyer may want it to be. So it's really important to kind of think through these things and talk about these things with the restaurants that you're interested in starting that buy-sell relationship with. In general, packaging is going to add that professionalism. They're used to getting their materials or their food products right from a Cisco, and that's all been packaged for a purpose. So it's branded, it's labeled, it's clear what's in it, the units, the weight, the volume, all that information is typically going to be on a product that's sourced from a distributor. So not necessarily you have to have all of that, but you need to know for your particular restaurant buyer, what of that do they need to have in order to step away from their usual distributor. Price of the material is going to be impactful too. Again, material and packaging is a cost, so you need to account for that. And then the shelf life and quality aspects of a packaging material choice also is something you want to think about. So one thing Joelle always likes us to mention is balancing the needs of your product with your customer needs. These are, again, some quotes direct from those interviews with restaurants that are buying, and I'll let you look through these. All of these quotes would be extended in in our actual workshop on site. So I'm not going to spend too much time reading through this, and we will have this archived as well so you can check back later. So these are the quotes. The next slide will be the checklist. Again, there's usually a few of these that you'll want to think about before you even walk into the restaurant. For example, do I understand how labeling can help build my identity? So these are things you want to have thought through, or at least gone through that checklist before you step in to talk to a restaurant owner. Moving from packaging to pricing, this is always a big question, and this is where a lot of folks kind of struggle a little bit, is to try to figure out what exact price they should charge, and it's always going to key off of your cost. So this is a really important thing to think about in terms of price is always what do you have in it, and then what margins do you want to get out of it. So that's the easy way to put those questions in terms of actually coming up with numbers. Again, we have some publications that can help you out with that. We'll point you to our resources at the end of the presentation. But one of the things you want to think about is this is a relationship that you're building with this restaurant. You're asking them to step out of their normal, easy way of doing things, and then you're asking them to choose your farm as their sole provider over others. So keeping in mind the why that you're answering with your marketing efforts. Why does that restaurant want you as their preferred supplier? It helps, again, you're needing to think from their perspective. What does their competition charge for that same dish? And then having this ability to negotiate price is something, if you're not good at it, then you want to have thought through it and put it in writing, so when you do go negotiate, you can have that conversation and be prepared to make sure you walk out of it still covering your own expenses. It also helps to do a weekly price list. This is, again, what they're used to with distributors. They get a weekly price list. That helps them design menus. It helps them set their menu prices. It allows them to do some pre-season planning. Again, this can be delivered using cheap technology with email or web-based delivery. You can build your own easy order form template. Again, things they're going to be used to, things that will generate added value in that relationship. And in general, they're looking for transparent pricing information. They want to know if you're charging them more than they're paying, can you explain why? Is there something there that they can add value to? Is there something that they can then transmit that cost onto their end user? So they'll work with you on that, and they're interested in that, but they want to be clear to them. Again, a quote from one of our growers, or one of our chefs here that's involved in buying direct from growers. And he mentions here, I can't probably pay you what you're paying, getting paid at a farmer's market, but I can move the volume for you the entire season that you have tomatoes. And then the checklist here, again, just an example of the checklist of things you're going to want to think through before you step in and speak with the restaurant owner.
Alrighty, so now we're on to the supply side of things, and we'll start by talking about what customers need in terms of supply and what are their expectations. So this is just a quick graph of a survey of chefs and their main barriers. This surveyed what their primary barriers were, and the largest one was consistent availability of product. If you think of it in terms of these guys are trying to structure a menu, so if they want to bring in a local product, their holy grail is to get a dish that's on their menu and it stays there and it becomes really popular with their clientele, and they're getting, they're putting in higher quality ingredients, they're getting a higher price, everybody's happy. That's their holy grail. So the more consistently your products can be available and the more time it can spend on a menu without a bunch of, one-off extra planning on their part, that's the kind of stuff that they're really looking for. Not to say that if you have something smaller, they won't necessarily do it for a special, but that's what they really desire. And some of the other considerations, they want a consistent quality. When your stuff comes in the door, they want to know what they're getting. Timing and reliability of deliveries. Again, if they've got customers sitting out there ordering something with your product in it, they need to have your stuff in their kitchen. And then, all the way at the back, you've got stuff like pricing, locating producers, and invoicing. So that's some chef data. So pre-planning on volume and market season was highly desired across the board. They want to know, these guys are planning, a lot of them plan way out in advance. They want to know what they can look at for the year or for the season or whatever going in. They don't want to have to spend a lot of time asking week to week or whatever what's available necessarily, because they also have to manage the kitchen, they have to manage inventory. So as much as you can let them know ahead of time what's going to happen, that's a great way to provide a service to them and make them desire you as a supplier more. Some chefs and growers do review seed catalogs prior to the planting season. That's just a way of pre-planting for the season. And then when you've got stuff coming in and out of season, you've got stuff coming in and out of the field, update them regularly. That might be email or fax. That might be a phone call. It might be a personal appointment. It might be stuff like price sheets that just get updated and sent out regularly. But you need to have some way of communicating what's available to them, especially far enough out that they can act on that information. All right, so this is some more quotes. The one thing I will drill down is volume is our biggest issue. We get stuff like that a lot. And then our checklist, which you can find, come to workshops. So our next one, so now we'll talk about production issues a little bit. So this is just an example of the Virginia fruit and vegetable availability calendar. I'm not going to focus as much on proteins like livestock, eggs, that kind of stuff, dairy right now, just because those industries, it's easier to control product availability across the year. But as you can see, with produce, with fruits, with berries, that kind of stuff, you really have to be mindful of what's coming into season when. So one main thing that we discuss a lot in person at the trainings is high tunnels, row covers. These are methods of season extension. If you've never seen one before, basically there are two different sizes of not really a greenhouse, but if you've ever seen a hoop house, it's a similar thing. Basically, it's a plastic cover that gets put up over plants to trap heat. And with a row cover, they're quite small. With a high tunnel, they might be 6-8 feet high with a frame. Anyway, they're successfully used to increase temperatures and protect against freezes, which means that they extend the production season, particularly into those colder months. They're a little bit trickier for keeping stuff safe from frost. They enhance your vegetative growth. It's growing for more time because it's not shutting down due to cold. The row cover is a level of protection against freezes depending on how thick the material used is, and they can also be barriers against pests and other wildlife threats. So this is a way to expand that consistent availability that you can offer your customer. And then this is just looking at throughout the course of the year, retail prices for vine tomatoes, which is just an example. You'll see that the months when there's a lower supply, when they're out of season, so before, when there's a lower supply of tomatoes on the market, prices are a lot higher. If you're growing and able to provide products for more of the year, you're also able to take advantage of higher market prices, and that's something you don't want to lose. And then finally, we've got networks. As my father likes to say, you don't farm alone. So this is just talking about some of the different organizations you can take advantage of to help make your operation more efficient. So one of those is cooperatives. If you go to our YouTube channel for Market Ready, which we'll discuss more at the end, we've got a couple guys from the Shenandoah Valley Beef Cooperative, and they talk a lot about their experience as individuals who then joined a cooperative to sell their product. They've got a lot of really great insight. But just to scratch the surface, logistics are distribution are a major barrier to local market development. If you're a smaller producer, you may not have access to delivery to single clients. It may be troublesome for restaurants to source enough from a single grower, depending on size. And you run into stuff like, you know, affording a freezer truck if you're going a long distance with product that needs to be kept cold, or anything like that. It can be tough for an individual to put up capital for that. Cooperatives where growers come together as member owners are a great way to deal with some of those barriers. And cooperative delivery using things of varying degrees of formality. Maybe it's a cooperative that controls everything the whole way through from growing to processing to delivery. Maybe it's something less formal than that, but they can offer a profitable solution to these problems and a way to deal with those issues. And then I mentioned organizations. These are some of the organizations that you can take advantage of to help make your business more profitable and more stable. Obviously, we've already found the Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition, but these are some of the other ones, the USDA, particularly the Rural Development Arm, Cooperative Extension, VDAC. So you can find more of those at our trainings as well. A lot of them send representatives. And then here's some more quotes. Having a farm that sells 20 dozen eggs a week doesn't really help when you have 1,000 possible customers. You need a large quantity to be able to supply these kind of accounts, and coming together can be a way to do that. And then here's our checklist. Again, I recommend that you look at the full one at a training rather than right now.
All right, thanks, Ben. Kind of moving through our list of topics that we cover, we'll jump into the invoicing topic. Again, this is still a business-to-business relationship like we talked about up front. So they're still going to expect, you to be able to provide them with an invoice for the products along with when you deliver it. And what they expect on that invoice is kind of what we'll go through here in this next section. So you need to be able to track your transactions. I know it's common sense, but one of the things that always seems to be the hardest to do when you're really busy and knee-deep in it is keeping your paperwork in order. This is where we really encourage you to take advantage of technology. Have a laptop and a little mobile printer in the front seat of your car. You can print this invoice off as you're fixing to run in the building and drop off your products. You have it on your computer, so when you do get around to getting your paperwork and your books straight, then you can go back and say, okay, I dropped that off on this date and it had this amount, and then I can send them and follow up and make sure we get paid in a timely fashion. Again, they're not paying Cisco when they walk in the door. That's handled. Billing is all handled off-site. Restaurants are busy. If you've ever seen the truck show up in the morning, if it's an afternoon service, they're shucking food in the back of the McDonald's, and it's early in the morning, and they're not sitting there waiting to get a check written for them. So for you, again, taking on that marketing task of pricing as well as getting your invoices delivered, you need to make sure you can document that. Tax purposes, of course, the IRS is going to want to know what you spent and how much you billed out, and so you can get that reporting done at the end of the year. One of the things I really like to encourage folks is, I know it's paperwork and it's based on cost, and that's easy to forget, but this is invaluable market data. At the end of the day, the whole direct-to-restaurant sales is based on your relationship with that restaurant owner and that chef. Those personal relationships have a real monetary value. And it's largely because you've opened your market data to one another. They're letting you know what customers think about the food that you're selling them. You're letting them know about how the food you grow, how it's produced, how it's brought to the customer, so then they can engage in that conversation with their buyer. So just being able to share this market data where you're in a partnership situation is what makes you different than Cisco or the other distributors. So it's really important to think about your invoice being another way you can document this market data that you're communicating, and be able to remember that in the following year when you want to continue that relationship. So again, future business planning, Ben talked about season extension, even going through seed catalogs. Before you've purchased the first seed, it's really nice to know that your market, i.e. your restaurant owner, is going to want to buy it. So they love to sit down and go over that with you, plan the menus during the slower season. And again, business planning together in a partnership relationship rather than, I'm trying to get the lowest price and I'm trying to get the highest price. So it takes it away from a price-based decision. It's more focused on what is the quality and supply of that product line that you're offering. Invoices are going to be required. Very few restaurants pay cash at the door. This is largely because restaurants are very dependent on their staff, and cash walks. Cash is going to walk out the door. So for the most part, they don't like to have a lot of cash in hand, and they're probably not going to have time to go pull it out of the vault if they keep some there on site. So they're going to be expecting you to give them an invoice and expecting to get paid at some future date. This is just an example of an invoice that I put together in Excel. I used a prearranged template. Where the arrows indicate is where I actually enter information. So there are 6 arrows on there, but again, it's a template that's already available in Excel software. So you don't have to be super fancy. Chefs don't need it super fancy, but this documents it. It's in a database. You can refer to it, and then they can as well. So if they lose it or it gets, gets mangled in the packaging and it gets wet in the back of the house, then they can still reprint and send another one. Key on here, farm logo. You are branding your product. We saw that in the top 20 things the restaurants want, which is a branded farm product. So you want to make sure your logo's on there. Make yourself as recognizable as possible. Invoice date and number. Was it a 30-day, 60-day? How long do you want to wait to get paid? Well, you need to know when you delivered it. So that's the invoice date needs to be on there, and the number specific to that load. Payment terms and due date be specific. Many of us can't wait on 30 days or 60 days. We're not big enough to carry that kind of expense. So be clear with that. Do they have 15 days? That's, again, in your discussion up front. Space for the customer contact information. At the bottom, always make sure your farm's complete contact information is on there. Then also the quantity of product, if you have a lot number, the cost, and then the total. So being very specific in there so they know exactly who to write a check to and exactly how much to send it and when it is due. So again, some quotes shared with us by our restaurant buyers during that survey. They're looking for receipts. They're looking for invoices. And here they mentioned you can make it a simple PDF file. It doesn't have to be fancy. They'll take them handwritten, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure you have it in some electronic database. If you set it up that way up front, it's very time efficient, and that's, again, important when you're engaging in those marketing activities. A couple of highlighted points to be thinking about. Do you have space on your invoice to print that information? Have you talked to them about it? Don't just hit them with it later. Make sure you've talked to them about it, and they know exactly what they're going to get and what it's going to look like, no surprises, and that's what you want to have as a minimum on your invoice. Going into insurance, this is a big issue, and it becomes very vague when it comes to restaurant sales. If you're selling to institutions, for example, hospitals or public schools, they're going to have a very clear expectation of product liability. But when you're selling to restaurants, we've seen responses to this kind of run the board. We've seen restaurant owners tell us, well, we trust farmers, they don't need to have it, or we assume they have it, or we thought we had it, and so it becomes very confusing. But in today's sort of litigious society, from our perspective as your market-ready team, we strongly encourage you to go ahead and investigate product liability insurance, because one main reason, it adds value to the restaurant. You tell them, hey, I have liability insurance on my products that I'm selling to you. I am covered. That is not something you need to worry about. That's a value that I'm adding by charging you more of a premium price, by bringing you a higher quality product. So that's something I'm bringing to this relationship. And that's worth you listening to me. It's worth you thinking about it. It's beginning this buyer-seller connection that we'd like to have. So again, the chefs are going to assume that you have that, or they're going to trust the integrity of the local product. So it really is on you as the grower to think about, this needs to be in your cost structure. This is something you need to have discussed with your insurance provider. Again, keeping in mind why they're trying to choose you over everyone else. So if you're 10 growers outside with tomatoes and one of you has the product liability insurance, that's going to make you stand out and be able to justify that price. In general, price of liability insurance is going to vary greatly, but we've seen quotes about under $500 a year for $1 to $2 million in coverage. Again, speak with your insurance provider on that. That's one of your business partners, and it's definitely something to keep in mind as you go forward with that relationship. And here's a couple of quotes. Small restaurants is not a big concern. Again, thinking about who your target market would be. If you're going to a smaller restaurant because you just don't have that big volume, in that case, it may not be something they're asking for, but still to be thinking about that from your own, protecting your own business perspective, I think we recommend you look into that. Right. And again, the checklist here, if you have proof of insurance, make sure it's on your marketing labels. If you have the money spent on product liability insurance, you want to let them know this is the value that we're bringing to them. Go ahead.
Alrighty, so talking about delivery. Delivery to restaurant locations is, in most cases, required of locally grown producers and suppliers. If you think about who you're competing with, you're competing with a distributor, you're competing with Cisco or Cavalier Produce, who's going to be pulling a semi-truck in behind that restaurant once or twice a week to deliver stuff ready-made to their door, which allows the restaurant to focus on doing other things. You need to be able to compete with that and provide that level of service so the restaurant isn't taking that on themselves, because they're not interested in that. When you're making delivery arrangements, you have to do it as scheduled. It has to be regular. It has to be convenient for them, although it should also be convenient enough for you that you're still turning a profit. And it needs to be on time. They need to have it when it's promised to them. Offering delivery is just a cost of marketing direct to restaurant. We started off with the food dollar. This is part of that food dollar that you're going to be reclaiming by adding another service and then charging for adding that service. So these are a couple quotes from restaurateurs. The big one here is, I'm depending on my suppliers to deliver the product when they say they're going to. If you're looking to offer something directly to restaurants, this needs to be something that you talk with them about, and then you need to follow through. This is very important. It's something that they expect. And this is just our checklist. talk about what days and times they want it. This needs to be a conversation that you guys have. So next we're talking about storage. So these two are kind of related. Restaurants do not have large kitchens. They typically don't have massive pantries, especially given the amount of foods they're serving on a weekly basis. So you need to kind of balance your delivery versus the ability to store product for you or the ability to store on-site, so you can keep them consistently supplied given the space constraints in their building. So the amount of you need to talk about how much storage do you guys have. How are you able to store this product? If they're, if they don't have a freezer, they can't very well keep meat, stuff like that. So you need to talk about what their limitations are, and that's going to affect the size and frequency of your deliveries. If they have a lot of space, then you can cut down on delivery costs by delivering a lot at once. But if they don't have a lot of space, they need to deliver more often to, offer them that consistency, and that's going to figure into your costs, your margin, and what you're charging them. You're not obligated to solve storage problems the same way that you're pretty much obligated to deal with delivery, but this is another way to add value, and it's a way to plan so that you can balance their needs and yours. You can also store on-farm, depending on what your situation is there. That helps you even out availability a little bit. You can arrange shared off-site storage that you drop it off, they pick it up, or sharing with other growers and distributors. So there are options. Work with restaurants on storage options for meat and less perishable produce, stuff they can keep on hand for a while versus, steaks are probably going to keep longer than, say, greens. And then for regular buyers, you may provide the opportunity to hold frozen or shelf-stable food items, depending on if you want to treat different buyers differently, kind of a regular, if you will. And then communicate with chefs to create storage solutions. That's the biggest thing, is you need to be talking about what their limitations are, what the product needs, and then you need to move from there so that by the time stuff shows up, they're still getting a quality product that they can use without costs that are breaking your bank or prices that are breaking theirs. So these are a couple quotes from restaurateurs. I wish I had a space to handle a whole hog, but I don't. I basically work in a kitchen that's a box. Each restaurant is different, but you need to be dealing with situations where they might just have limited prep space and no storage space. So you need to be prepared for different eventualities when you're talking with chefs about these kind of things. And then here are a couple of our checklists. You need to know what your product needs. You need to know what chefs can offer. Same kind of stuff we already covered.
All right, we'll get to the last two sections. Good? All right, last two sections for us. Quality assurance is another one of those ways you can add positive value to that relationship with your restaurant. So they're expecting, if the quality is not there, if they have a problem with it in any way, that you're going to do what the distributors do, which is to replace it in a timely fashion, or offer an alternative if you don't have any of that particular item, or find someone else that does. So this idea of quality assurance is something you want to build into that relationship. They're going to expect the producers, especially of the meat, dairy, eggs, and processed food, to have met and exceeded USDA, FDA, or any other state health requirements. They just assume that that's what you're doing because you're bringing them a premium product. So, again, having an open conversation about that right off and explaining what you're going to do if for some reason that expectation is not met, you have to have thought about that in advance. Be prepared if you have certification documents. If you are doing USDA organic or if you have GAP certification, bring your documents. Again, this is going to show value of your product over another competitor's product, and it's going to help ensure that long-term relationship. So overall, restaurants didn't identify third-party audits as a major requirement to purchasing local foods or food products. However, from our perspective, as extension specialists and agents, we want to make sure that you're aware of the fact that food safety is a major concern. So it's the biggest issue on the horizon, I think, for the local food production and direct sales, the shorter market supply channels. There haven't been too many, knock on wood, major scares with folks purchasing direct from growers, but it's for sure a major concern and for why people want to buy food direct from farmers. We've done several surveys here in the Southeast of 6,000 folks that buy direct from growers, And one of the major reasons they do that is because they feel they're getting a safer product than any other U.S. grown product. So, and it's a significant variable every time we do this in our mathematical analysis. So thinking that, oh, well, one little bad thing isn't a big deal, or one food item that's not perfect or not premium isn't going to lose my relationship, that's false thinking. So if you remember nothing out of this, food safety is a major thing. Whatever you can do to ensure that you are following certification rules, that you are documenting your process, take pictures of how you bring the food and how you store it and how you just transport it, all the things we've talked about, keeping those invoices in electronic files so that you can show, again, that value is being added to that particular restaurant. It's going to make it much easier for them to go, this is the person I want to buy from. This is a person I can speak to my customers about when I'm on the floor. So a little bit on good ag practices. Again, we have lots more on this when we do the in-person training. It's largely voluntary for producers selling direct to restaurants. It can be conducted by third-party auditors or farm inspections. Department of Ag here in Virginia can help you out with more information on that. And there are some certification programs and training specifically for GAP that Amber Valentin and Renee Boyer and their team are working on. So again, we'll link you to those resources through our VCE website as well as their own information out there. So again, keep that in mind. Quality assurance is expected. You want to have that as part of your conversation. And some notes here from the chefs, and these are always interesting to me because sometimes they can be a little bit conflicting. So some say that they feel like the local salad mix is going to last longer in the cooler because it got picked that morning. Again, chefs aren't necessarily, they're not producers either. So while they may know it came from the ground or a tree or a bush, they're still not going to be as familiar with how long it lasts on the shelf because they're used to dealing with a standardized product coming from their distributors. So this is something you want to think about. Well, example here of ice cream. Remember, artisan ice cream was one of the top 10 things. A person that's producing that may say it has to be at 25 degrees below zero. If they trust someone else to ship it or they trust the restaurant to keep it at a temperature and it's not done right, well, then their product quality is messed up. So from your side as well, you want to make sure they know how to store, prepare, and handle your product because it may be different than a typical item they get from a distributor. In the checklist here, again, I've talked about cold chain requirements. I've talked to my customers about handling practices to maximize quality and shelf life specific to your products because it makes a difference. And again, this is part of that education piece that you want to be involved in. So the last section here will kind of come down the pike with is communication and a satisfaction guarantee. Again, language they're familiar with, that they're comfortable with. You've heard the word communication a little bit in here. If you come join us for the day, you'll be sick of it, I promise you, after 8 hours. But this is really what it's about, and this is where the time comes in. So don't forget to value your time or whoever is your marketing front person that's time-consuming to go talk to restaurants. It's time-consuming to go through this checklist, which is another reason we feel like this workshop's helpful. It gives you a bullet point list, lets you really focus your effort and sort of organize your thoughts. So that, in turn, will give you that communication avenue with your buyer. So accessibility and transparency is what communication, spending time and money on communication is going to buy you in that relationship. And again, that long-term profitability, the long-term sustainability of that relationship is what it's your goal, is your end goal. So from the producer side, the grower insight, you want to understand your chef needs. You want to understand what they're hearing from their consumers. The part where people don't know where their food comes from, well, that's now part of your job. If you're trying to sell direct to the restaurants, you've got to help them explain to their consumers where the food is coming from and how come it's of a superior quality, what makes it different. So that's going to be part of your job as you step into that marketing side of that food dollar. And having the idea of a signature product, a signature relationship built around this communication effort that you're putting in is really a key thing to keep a hold of as you go through that thought. Make sure the chef understands the product and quality. It's really important. Establish an understanding of how the product should appear on delivery. So again, they may not care about packaging until it shows up looking different, and then suddenly they're concerned. So bring it as samples. Samples are a major thing. We've talked to a lot of people that sell to restaurants or sell direct, and we've heard anywhere from 0 to 50% sampling is required before people really jump on and say, okay, I'm going to try that, I'm going to feature that. So again, in your cost, be thinking about, I need to maybe give away 25% of my stuff to build this relationship. So it's well worth it if you have a premium price at the end of it, but you want to think about what should it look like and what are they expecting. Again, that extra mile of being able to nurture that long-term relationship. Think of it like that. Don't think of it as, well, this is going to go one time and it may or may not work. Be thinking about, I've put this prep work in it, we've built this relationship, we both have time invested in it, and we're really trying to make this last over many seasons. But do be aware that you don't want to be subject to unreasonable demands. If they want you to store, if they want you to transport, well, then the price has to be reflecting that those expenses are something you're willing to take on or share if you're in a cooperative situation. So again, a quote, it's all about partnership and trust. Be upfront. Don't send an off quality to fill an order. If you don't have it, they'd rather know than send a bad quality. And again, just a couple of checklists, and there's several more that goes with this, and we'd love for you to join us at the workshop and see that. But that relationship that allows for honest dialogue is really kind of a key take-home point here.
Alrighty, folks. Well, we're in the home stretch. These are the dates and dates, times, places for our upcoming restaurants here in the, upcoming workshops here in the fall and early winter. We've got one on November 30th for the folks who are closer to the southwest end of the state, down there in Whitful, at Whitful Community College. And then we've got some up in Arlington as well, a couple weeks after that in December, Thursday, December 12th. So if you can make either of those, please register online. We'd love to see you there. We'd love to see rooms full of happy faces ready to learn. Just to throw this in real quick, we spent a lot of time talking about direct marketing. If you want to get started with it, but you don't really know where to start, Market Maker is a project that Dr. Morgan and I both work on. It's an online platform that acts as a matchmaker for producers and buyers of ag products. So if you're looking to market directly, it's free. It's not hard to get started with. You go on Market Maker, poke around, register, get started, find people to sell to. This can help start that process. You can find us at va.foodmarketmaker.com, or you can also find our extension portal at ext.bt.edu, Agriculture Market Maker. That program is also on Facebook, and they have a YouTube channel with a couple of videos showing you how to use the program, how to use the platform, and how to sign up. Then as far as the Market Ready program itself, the stuff we've been doing here today, you can see the link to the extension platform for that. And then we also have YouTube. We've done some producer interviews. They have a lot of great experience to share with you. So find some Virginia Market Ready on YouTube as well. I think you'll really enjoy that and hopefully find that really helpful. So with that, I suppose we'll open it up for questions.
All right, everyone, we've about reached the end of our webinar, and what we're going to do is ask that if you have any questions that you would like to send through, you do that through the chat feature, which is in the top right-hand side of your screen. It says chat next to it. And I will relay those to our presenters as we need to do it. The first question that we have is, where can we register for the Farm to Restaurant workshop? I'm going to direct that to Kim Morgan.
Can you take it to the website? I'm going to ask Alyssa to follow the link there. If you follow the link to the Virginia Market Ready Farm to Fork Direct Marketing Resources, there she popped already, and then you go to, let's see, there you go, and you see training, the training tab there on your page. Hopefully everyone can see it. And you'll see links there for both of those. You can click that register now link in both cases, and it'll take you to online registration for, I think online registration is available for Fairlington and Arlington. The Whitfield may be a paper registration, but that's where you can get that information and go ahead and get signed up. Thank you.
While you go ahead and type those up into our chat box, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a very quick evaluation with all of you that we would love for you to fill out if you have the time. What this does is tells us, one, how did you enjoy this webinar, but also what other webinars do you want to see in the future, because all of these are meant to help you, and we can't do that without your feedback. So I will be sending that to everybody through the chat feature as well, and that'll be open for you to do now, or if you wanted to do it later tonight. Any of those are acceptable, and you can take it whenever you would like, but that is coming through right now on your chat. All right, and if anybody is joining us on the phone, what you can do, if you have a question and you aren't able to send it in the chat box because you're on the phone, you can press *6, and that will unmute your microphone, and you'll be able to ask us the question through your phone. But anybody who's at a computer, we ask that you do that through the chat feature. Sure. What we'll do while we get your questions is I'm going to actually allow Ben to share his screen so he can open up the website and the blog that he wants to show you, and he will share that to you in just 1 second while you continue to send your questions through the chat box.
Alrighty, well folks, here we are at the extension website. So let's go through and we'll start with our blog. These blog posts were conducted by myself and other students on the Cole Center class that helped with the beginning of Market Ready back last fall. My peers Morgan Metter and Emily Van Dyke, we went and we conducted interviews with producers who are already marketing directly with restaurants and with restaurants who are buying directly from producers. And these are those synopses are here on the blog on our page, so you can come see those, hear about the main concerns on growers' minds that were already dealing with this, and the main concerns on the minds of restaurants who are already buying. And then we did videos as well, so you can click through to our YouTube channel, and that'll send you, that'll show you these interviews that we did. Some of them are topical videos talking about things like connecting with buyers, and some of them are interviews with individual farms or businesses.
All right, and one of the questions that we just got through the chat box is, one of the main requirements was availability of product, but how do producers and restaurants deal with the seasonality of product? Cisco can provide tomatoes year-round, for example. So I'm going to direct that to Kim Morgan as well to answer.
Okay, that's a really good question, and that's one of the things that you have to explain right at the very beginning with your restaurants, is that you may, unless you have high tunnel production, then you're not going to be able to provide over the full year round. So where you come at them there is, first of all, your product is, give them samples. It's a higher quality product than they're able to get through Cisco. That's the first thing you want to do, is convince them of that. Secondly, you want to convince them of the fact that you have whatever certifications you need, so that you again building your brand, if you will. That's another thing that you want to make a point of acknowledging. The other thing you want to do is be really clear about when exactly you will have tomatoes for them. So if they do agree, okay, I understand you only have them for 12 weeks, and I'm willing to accept that, you want to make sure you do have them for 12 weeks. And one of the things that some of our growers have done or have told us they have done is they stagger plantings so that they have product coming off, over the course of that 12-week window. It takes more production management. Now, of course, y'all know that as producers better than I do as an economist. But the idea of staggering your planting so that you have product coming off at different times. The other thing is different varieties is going to be something that you can have that's very unique to your buyer-seller relationship that Cisco may not be able to have. So the idea of pre-planning the season of what type of tomatoes you may be growing for that particular restaurant, you work with the restaurant in the off-season to think about that. And then they're going to be able to then in turn transmit that information to their consumers, so the people that walk in off the street, hey, we don't have just regular tomatoes, we've got tomatoes from a local farm, and there's different varieties, and they have these different flavors, and they can do a tomato testing, or they can pair them with different different other items. So that, again, is all part of that sort of working together as a relationship. So to sort of circumvent the fact that, yes, they can get a traditional red tomato 12 months out of the year, 365 days a week from Cisco. So that's a great question. Thank you.
And with that, we have reached the end of our webinar time. I will once again send this evaluation link through to you all. If you can just take a couple of minutes, tell us about you, tell us what else you want to see. We'd love to be able to offer what it is you're wanting. Again, this recording is going to be available through the Virginia Beginning Farmer and Rancher Coalition website, which is vabeginningfarmer.org, and the webinar and slides will be available early next week. So with that, we would like to thank everybody for being able to join us today, and of course thank Dr. Morgan and Ben for being able to speak with us. And I hope everybody has a great day, and if you have any questions, please feel free to send them through email at vt.edu, or you can send them through to Kim Morgan at the email listed on the slide here. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.